Welcome back to Free My Pain Now with Dr. Matt Doduro. We're starting off, I think this is episode 23, and it is January of 2020. So we're really excited. We made it through that first year of podcast. Thank you guys. What a good team I have here. Dale and Samuel, you guys are awesome.
Yep, episode 23.
So some things to talk about, really exciting. We had Dr. Jay Davidson on, who was the host of the Mitochondrial Summit that went out to 70,000 people. It was very well received, went all around the world. As I was telling you guys, it's been pretty cool because our reach just went from southeast of United States to internationally known. You hear that? Boom. So we've got doctors reaching out from New Zealand, Australia, UK, Switzerland, South Africa, Cape Town, South Africa. Really some exciting energy about this device. And not to mention what we're doing here in the States. We've placed these in several of the top clinics in the country. And as you know, guys, I have this dream. I'm committed to saturation with getting this stem cell machine out to some of the major markets in the United States. So that has been my goal for the last 2 years. This podcast, Free My Pain Now, has really helped me spread the message and the unbelievable results that we're getting from this device, which is, for some of you listeners who are just checking in, it is a low-intensity lithotripsy device. Oh, what is a lithotripsy device? Yeah. Well, those are the units that they use in hospitals to break up kidney stones. And they're like $500,000. They're very expensive. They have to knock the patient out with anesthetics to utilize to pinpoint where that kidney stone is. And then they use about 2,500 shock waves over a 20-minute period. And the shock waves are electrohydraulically produced sound waves that are created with almost like taking a lightning bolt and thunder and putting it into an applicator, and can penetrate anywhere from 8 to 12 inches into the body. So it's pretty cool. Ours is a low intensity lithotripsy or mobile. So it's about 20% of the strength of the big hospital units. And, I talk about the 2 millimeter difference. It can make such a huge success for our doctors that are out there listening that have these devices. We talk about this as being you've got to feel it to heal it. You've got to, if you run this device over normal tissue, there's no pain. But as soon as we get to an area of inflammation or irritation or degeneration, patients like, oh, right there. And it's just, it's almost idiot proof because, you look up, above, down, all around, you try to map out that area. It's been really wonderful. But that 2 millimeter difference can make such a huge difference in either success or failure with the patient or as a practitioner. So we like to hear when a patient says right there, or they'll go, whoop, there it is, right there, right? Remember that song? So I've been traveling all over the country and enjoying. I've got a big speaking event tomorrow in Vancouver, Washington. I'll be out at Inlight Hyperbarics. And you guys remember Miss Caitlin Wilson and Edna Ness? Well, they have a device now. So, and they have a wonderful nurse practitioner and naturopathic medical doctor out there. So they're going to be doing some wonderful stuff out there. A lot of people from the Mitochondrial Summit, a lot of patients were like, where can I get this type of therapy? So you can go to freemypainnow.com. It is a website, and you can punch in and ask for more information about this. We'll find you where one of our certified centers of excellence are in the United States. There are about 120 of these devices across the country. there's going to be more and more. I mean, every day I'm handling 20 to 30 different responses from providers and patients. I had to hire my daughter, Isabella. Thank you, Isabella Doduro, who put together a wonderful email campaign so that we could automate this process because it was overloading me. You guys saw I came in kind of frazzled because I'm on the phone a lot and answering questions from patients and doctors. And we're going to start having you guys send in questions about this device. I have some today that we're going to go over. Some of the top questions that new practitioners might have or even patients. And I think that's something that's really important. In my travels, I got to meet some wonderful, wonderful doctors. I was just on the phone with Dr. Phil Lanou. Dr. Phil is in Spokane, Washington, and he is an osteopath. And he is sharp enough to bring this technology to his community. He also does some really cool work. It's called hydrodissections. He will be on our podcast in 2 weeks. He's agreed. So really excited about that. Also traveling and getting to meet, I got to meet a wonderful Dr. Adam Del Torto, who's out in Burbank, California, of all places. And he has pretty cool, he does some stuff, it's called biblical level healing. And after I showed him my device, he was like, you, friend, are using futuristic level healing. So we're taking it to a different level, which is nice. So, you know, one of the things we're also asking is, hey, if you like our podcast, and please leave a review, either on Apple iTunes. It makes it much easier for other listeners and providers to find us. And as I was chatting with this nice gentleman today, I was telling you, we're charting, let's see, I think in France, we were 34 after the Mitochondrial Summit, ranked for alternative healthcare podcasts. In Australia, no, in UK, we were 67th. And I think in Australia, we were 104. But not charting here in the States yet, folks. So I'm trying to figure out, like, is there like 2 people out there listening? Or do we're building a nice little clientele. I know that. One of the cool things we did is we've now paired up with Chiro Hustle. Dr. Luke, no, they're not doctors. Luke Millette and Jim. Jim is a wonderful guy. They've developed this over the last 2 years. Samuel's picking it up. Jim, that guy right there. They were just listed in Fortune magazine as one of the top 20 influential entrepreneur podcasts. So you can roll down. Look, we're one of their supporters there. Check that out. Go down a little lower. You'll see somebody developed that. Boom, free my pay now. Who developed that logo?
That was Anthony. That was a while back.
Anthony, that's right. Before you, Dale.
Yeah, it's good to hear. I mean, there's people in pain all around the world.
It is, and we've got a good message that people are looking for, not only solutions, but finding the root cause of what's happening there. So we're working. I'm going to be interviewed on their podcast the end of the month. Excited about that. They go out to over 15,000 people every week, and they're rocking and rolling. And they were just blown away by when I was explaining about the stem cell machine and what's happening. I do have to disclose that we have to make sure that stem cell machine was nicknamed by the show The Doctors. And it's not something that we actually came up with, but we liked it and it stuck, and it's helped really get our message to the masses. So whatever marketing, whatever nickname they want to call it, that's great. So yes, we talk about a couple things. Fear and pain and stress are really not an evil. You have to understand they're part of our protective sensory nervous system, that keeps us safe in our environment. just like birds, they get startled really easy when feeding, or you'll see them all kind of fly away at the same time. It's almost like their little safety sound will send them back to the trees. Pain is a way of protecting our nervous system as well. It's our body's way of letting our brain know that we've been injured or hurt. It's like a warning light comes off in your car. It's sometimes, a sign to get it checked out. I'll tell you stories about one of my patients who put a piece of electrical tape over that. We both know that you're not going to be able to drive that car much longer if you're not listening to, the signs and signals from that car. Same thing as with your body. So in our next segment, we'll get into a little bit deeper with that and talk about what happens in the healing process. All right, welcome back, folks, to Free My Pain Now with Dr. Matt DeDuro, and we're in episode 23 and second half, and hope you're having a healthy, safe 2020. So, we were talking on our break. This is the fat bomb. Samuel, you saw this on the Joe Rogan, right?
I've heard about him, yeah.
This is part of the ketogenic, lifestyle. Fat is not your enemy. Oftentimes people they'll think that, right? You have to understand that fat, the good fats, are the basic building block of all your hormones. So, from your testosterone to your estrogen, these are all important elements to the building blocks that make us who we are. So, the ketogenic is very low in carbohydrates. And a lot of our patients, that's what we suggest for them. It helps reduce inflammation. You try to do less than 24 grams of carbohydrates in a day. So I try to do 12 in the first half of the day and then another 12. But this has 210 calories, and it's got, it's got total fat, 22 grams, which is 34% of your daily recommended allowance. But it's not bad. There are good fats, and, we talked about this before. The Eskimos, their main part of their diet for centuries was whale fat, blubber, right? So you'd think that every Eskimo would have some type of cholesterol issues or heart issues. Research is starting to show that it is not fat in our diet that creates plaque. It's actually inflammation within your system. What's inflammation? Inflammation can be a sunburn. Inflammation can be an irritation when you get poison ivy. That's inflammation, irritation to the skin. So, but also, I read a crazy stat that 90% of Americans are lactose intolerant. They're still drinking milk. It reminds a story of my younger cousin. He was in like 10th grade in high school. And, what do kids eat in the morning? They have cereal, right? So you've got wheat product, and then you've got a dairy product. And so...
And a whole bunch of sugar, too.
Yeah. And he would, he would give him some energy for a little bit, but by second period, he was getting gassy. And he didn't want to flatulate or pass gas. He was embarrassed, which when we were growing up, it was a sign of valor if you could, create some cool noises out of your body. And, but, so he went to the doctor. What's the doctor give him? An anti-bloating, an anti-gas type of thing, right?
Gotcha.
Well, that thing made him constipated, right? So then he goes back to the doctor, and, 2 days later, he's on 2 different pills, the drugs. And, really, they never got to the true source of what was happening. He 5 years later, realized when he was in college that he was lactose intolerant. He couldn't deal with the dairy products anymore. But, for a couple of years, he was on these different medications to help him when, in fact, a lot of these naturopathic doctors that we've had on, Dr. Adelina Isold and a couple others that we're going to have in the future, and chiropractors, they want to get to the root source of what's causing the issue. You don't want to just give a pill for the ill. So we were talking about pain, right? When you break your leg, there is going to, in an accident, there's going to be some pain and suffering involved in that healing process. Since 1996, when opioids first came into the market, we started treating the pain differently, right? The doctors really said, hey, we were underestimating pain. It was the sixth vital sign. And really what happened is you saw, we traded pain and suffering for the addiction. And so many people, all it takes is 2 or 3 times taking an opioid and it changes the morphology of your brain and the way your risk reward center is processing. So, we're seeing towards the end of fourth quarter of 2019, we saw some states that were actually starting to sue some of the big pharma, especially Purdue Pharma, which was, the one that came up with the OxyContin. And if you know the story behind Purdue Pharma, they were pretty sharp the way they went to the FDA and they said, hey, we have this new classification of an opioid. And we want to, this is an extended release one. And this new type of capsule will only, 1% of the population will only become addicted to it. And so, it won't be abused, right? Because of the extended release, patients will not be able to abuse it. So, if you think about why some of these OxyContins and some of these strong opioids even came onto the market, it was for palliative care, people in hospice, people who were in the end stage of their life, and we're giving them a process to pass on to the next life gracefully and with dignity. So, but it was only for acute or short term, which is usually less than 30 days. Well, Purdue Pharma they were crafty. They basically lobbied, and most pharmaceutical companies, they spend a lot of money on marketing. And what we found out in 2016 was that for every $1 spent on research, there's actually $19 spent on marketing to you and your families. It might not be the best product out there. I mean, when you compare it to the stem cell machine, but it's not about what's the best. It's about what's marketed the most. And we're losing in the marketing industry. We just don't have the money, right? They're putting $7 to $8 billion per year to tell you which pill or which drug to take. And it gets old. I love those drug commercials. Ask your doctor if this drug is right for you, right? And, for the first 10 seconds, they're telling you all the great things. But the next 45 seconds, that announcer, he speeds up and he tells you all the different side effects. And, I mean, 1 or 2 of those side effects you don't want and could cause death.
And meanwhile, all the beautiful imagery of the quality time you'll be spending with your family. Yeah.
Right. I love those. But always at the end, there's like, ask your doctor if this drug's right for you. I mean, they are consumer-driven products, right? So, Purdue Pharma was sharp because they said, hey, we've got this drug and it's different than any other. So the FDA in 1996 came out with a special classification. And, nobody had ever had an extended release. And people weren't going to be, they weren't going to become addicted to it. Well, they had a wonderful marketing campaign. They sent doctors to these great seminars all around the country at these top resorts, and doctors started prescribing it. And, 10 years later in 2006, the U.S. District Attorney Office out of Southern Manhattan they actually sued Purdue Pharma and I think got around $670 million for false and misleading advertising. And, it was 10 years later. It was at the time, it was the largest paid fine ever by any pharmaceutical company. But who cared? I mean, at that point, 10 years later, the cat was out of the bag. And, hence that was the first decade of the opioid epidemic. And we've seen the fallout, something that's wild since 2016 and 17, 18, the last 4 years are the first time in 100 years where Americans' life expectancy actually went down. In 1914, the average male in the United States lived to be 47 years old. And over the next 9,700 years, we got up to about 80, 81. And then the last 3-4 years, we have, we're losing the war. We're losing 1,000 people in our community every week from this terrible epidemic. I've been lucky enough to be able to go up to D.C. and meet with some of the top the consultants to the opioid czar that President Trump has put out there. And I really feel that our device is an answer for the opioid epidemic. I feel this is the true source of getting to pain and why you have that pain. So, next time you're reaching for their Tylenol, don't get confused. Is it morning? Is it Tylenol AM or PM? I mean, which one are you going to use? Are you having that pain because you have a lack of Tylenol running through your blood? I don't know. I doubt it from a physiological standpoint. But we want to get to the answers, right? We want to get to the root cause of this. And that's one of the things that Free My Pain Now has really focused on is empowering and educating our community and our listeners how to be the best person that they can be, right? How to be a healthcare advocate for their family and understand some of the damaging effects from long-term medication. So, we were a little bit all over the place for this episode. We've got some great guests next week coming in. Dr. Marco Ferrucci and Tim Lyons. They are some wonderful chiropractors. And actually, we'll have them on next episode. Thank you.